Remember that FBI anti-piracy screen you used to see before a movie? Yeah, most people just ignored it. But behind that blue warning, a war was being fought. A war between billion-dollar corporations and a few teenagers with cracked software and dial-up internet. They called it piracy, but to some it was freedom. This is the untold story of how a few clicks changed the internet forever, and why, no matter how hard they tried, they could never sink the pirate ship. It started like every great rebellion does, quietly and visibly, and with good intentions. A teenager in his bedroom, a glowing monitor, and a dial-up modem making alien noises. The world had no idea it was witnessing the birth of the biggest digital crime wave in history, and maybe the most misunderstood one too. The year was the late 1990s. The internet was a brand new playground, messy, slow, mysterious. Every download felt like a secret act of discovery. People weren't stealing, they were sharing. And in that word, sharing, lay the biggest lie ever told online. Before streaming, before Spotify or Netflix, there was a single revolutionary idea. What if you didn't have to buy the CD? What if you could just copy it? The first pirates weren't criminals. They were dreamers, tinkerers, computer nerds who wanted access to music their wallets couldn't afford. To them, it wasn't theft. It was justice. After all, how could you steal something that still existed on the other person's hard drive? But to the corporations, this wasn't cute. It was chaos. Entire industries built on scarcity were suddenly faced with infinite supply. The internet had made duplication effortless, and the world had no legal or moral rulebook for it. Soon, what began as innocent experimentation turned into a silent movement. CDs were being ripped, songs were spreading, and the old economy was quietly bleeding out one MP3 at a time. It was the dawn of the digital rebellion, one that would blur the lines between art and theft, creativity and crime. And at the center of this rebellion was a name that would forever be etched into the internet's Hall of Fame, or infamy, depending on who you ask. Enter Sean Fanning, a 19-year-old college dropout, having a big idea. In 1999, from his dorm room, he built a simple program called Napster. Its purpose? To connect computers so people could share music directly. No middleman, no permission, no price tag. What Fanning didn't realize was that he had just thrown a digital grenade into the music industry. Within months, Napster had millions of users. Suddenly, everyone was trading songs. Backstreet Boys next to Metallica, the Beatles next to Eminem. For the first time in history, music belonged to the people. But the party couldn't last forever. The record labels noticed, and when Metallica found one of their unreleased tracks floating around on Napster, the band lost its mind and its patience. They sued publicly, loudly. It was the first major legal war of the digital age. The headlines were cinematic: rock stars versus teenagers, corporations versus freedom, art versus access. MTV ran news segments about music theft. The FBI started sniffing around, and somewhere in a suburban basement, a kid whispered, "Wait, I could go to jail for downloading Enter Sandman?" But it was too late. The genie was out of the bottle. Even when Napster was shut down in 2001, the spark it lit became an unstoppable fire. Fanning's little side project proved something revolutionary: that people didn't hate paying for music. They hated the inconvenience of it. Napster wasn't just a software, it was a cultural awakening. And when it fell, it didn't kill piracy. It gave birth to 1,000 successors. The rebellion had found its rhythm, and soon, the internet would turn that rhythm into a storm. When Napster fell, it didn't die. It scattered. Like sparks flying off a burning match, fragments of its idea landed across the internet, igniting new fires everywhere. Within months, strange new names began spreading in whispered conversations across chat rooms and school corridors. Kazaa, LimeWire, BearShare. If Napster was a rebellion, these were full-blown riots. They didn't just let you share music, they let you share everything. Movies, games, cracked software, even mystery folders you definitely shouldn't open. And unlike Napster, there was no central server to shut down. These were decentralized networks, a hydra with infinite heads. Cut one down and two more appeared. The early 2000s became the golden age of reckless downloading. Your PC's hard drive was a digital jungle. full of stolen music, mislabeled movie files, and viruses disguised as the latest Eminem track. Everyone had that one friend who claimed to have the full Spider-Man movie weeks before release, only to open it and find something entirely different. It was chaos, and it was glorious. Kids were becoming mini hackers without realizing it. Adults were pretending they didn't know what peer-to-peer meant, and the music industry was in free fall, watching billions vanish into digital thin air. The government tried to respond. Laws were passed, lawsuits rained down, and people began seeing terrifying headlines. 12-year-olds sued for downloading songs. It was like watching an army trying to arrest ghosts. But underneath the anarchy was a deeper truth. People had tasted the power of digital freedom. Once you give humanity the ability to copy anything, you can't take it back. And so, as millions around the world double-clicked on those lime green icons, downloading files through the night, the line between criminal and consumer began to fade. But then, something appeared on our screens. Something that made every pirate hesitate just for a second. A golden seal, an eagle, and a voice that declared in bold letters, FBI warning, piracy is not a victimless crime. There it was, the digital scarecrow of an entire generation. Every time you popped in a DVD or rented a movie, that blue screen would flash before your eyes. The proud golden eagle, the intimidating text, and that unmistakable line, piracy is not a victimless crime. To a kid in 2003, it felt like a message from the guardians of justice. To a pirate, it was comedy. The FBI anti-piracy warning screen became the internet's most famous joke. Ironically, it was supposed to stop people from stealing, but it became a meme long before memes existed. You couldn't skip it. You couldn't fast forward. It was there, unskippable, like a government ghost haunting your DVD player. And yet, minutes later, the same movie was being torrented online without that FBI warning. The pirates had effectively deleted the government's voice. But that little screen was more than just a meme. It was a psychological war tactic. Hollywood realized it couldn't stop piracy physically, so it tried to stop it emotionally. Fear was the weapon. The eagle was the symbol. The message was clear. We're watching you. The problem? No one believed it. The average downloader sitting in their bedroom didn't think the FBI cared about them. The world was too big, the internet too infinite. Who would notice one kid downloading Shrek 2? But the message did work in one way. It gave piracy an identity. It turned every act of downloading into a mini rebellion against authority. Every FBI warning screen became a silent challenge. You think you can stop us? Watch this. Soon, that golden eagle became a cultural relic, a badge of nostalgia, a shared joke among the very people it tried to scare. It symbolized an era when the fight for control over digital media was still visible, printed right there in bold letters. But behind that blue screen, a new threat was rising, one that no law could contain. A new technology was emerging from the shadows, more powerful and untouchable than anything before. Its name, BitTorrent. And with it came the rise of an empire that called itself the Pirate Bay. By the early 2000s, the internet had gone from a curiosity to a weapon, and in 2001, a quiet revolution began. Not in a boardroom, not in a hacker den, but in the mind of one man, Bram Cohen, a programmer with an idea that would change everything. He called it BitTorrent, a way to share massive files without depending on one central server. Instead of downloading from one source, you'd download tiny pieces from hundreds of people at once. The more people shared, the faster it got. It wasn't just efficient, it was unstoppable. With BitTorrent, piracy evolved from chaos to coordination. No more fake MP3s or half-downloaded files. Now you could get an entire movie in perfect quality in hours. The underground world rejoiced. And then came the Pirate Bay. Born in Sweden in 2003, it wasn't just a website, it was a declaration of war. Its founders, Fredrik Nye, Gottfrid Svartholm, and Peter Sunde, weren't your typical criminals. They saw themselves as digital activists, rebels fighting for information freedom. Their servers wore the infamous pirate ship logo like a flag of defiance. The Pirate Bay wasn't hidden in the shadows, it was loud. Their homepage had a search bar, a ship, and an attitude that screamed, "We're not stealing, we're sharing culture." Governments disagreed. Raids followed. Court cases exploded. The Swedish police stormed their data centers in 2006. And yet, hours later, the Pirate Bay was back online, mocking the authorities with a simple banner, "Site down due to raid. We're back now, haha." The legend was born. It became more than piracy. It was ideology, a digital resistance movement. To millions, the Pirate Bay symbolized freedom from corporate greed and censorship. To industries, it was a virus infecting the economy. For the first time, the internet had its own outlaw kingdom. And every torrent downloaded, every movie, every song, every game felt like an act of rebellion. But as the Pirate Bay rose, so did Hollywood's wrath. And soon, the war that started in bedrooms and dorm rooms would spill into global courtrooms. Hollywood was bleeding, DVD sales were collapsing, leaks were rampant, and billion-dollar studios were suddenly powerless against a teenager with a laptop and a decent connection. Movies that hadn't even hit theaters were being watched in bedrooms. Cam rips, shaky, blurry theater recordings flooded the internet, complete with coughs, laughter, and someone walking across the screen with popcorn. It wasn't just music anymore. Now, cinema was being stolen, and Hollywood wasn't laughing. The MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America, launched a full-scale counterattack. They hired private investigators, pressured ISPs, and filed thousands of lawsuits. Websites were shut down, domains were seized, but for everyone that fell, 3 more rose from the ashes. The internet had become a hydra of rebellion. Pirates began organizing in private forums, secret places with names like Elite Torrents, Scene Access, and Release Hive. There, groups known as the Scene operated with near-military precision. They didn't just upload, they released. Each film rip was tagged, time-stamped, and proudly credited. It wasn't chaos, it was craftsmanship. The irony was brutal. Hollywood spent millions trying to secure their content, and pirates cracked it within hours, sometimes minutes. Even Oscar screeners, those private DVDs sent to Academy voters, leaked online before the awards. One FBI agent later admitted, "It felt like trying to stop smoke with your hands," and the world was changing faster than any studio could adapt. As piracy devoured profits, a few visionaries within Hollywood began whispering a dangerous idea. What if we stop fighting and start competing? That idea, born out of desperation, would soon reshape the entire entertainment landscape. But before Netflix and Spotify brought legal convenience, there was still chaos, still rebellion, still that pirate ship sailing in defiance. The stage was set for the next era, the digital renaissance, when piracy itself would force the world to evolve. By 2008, the entertainment industry had tried everything: lawsuits, raids, scare campaigns, and even guilt-tripping ads comparing pirates to car thieves. "You wouldn't steal a car." That infamous line played before countless DVDs, while the same audience quietly smirked, knowing they'd downloaded the movie the night before. Hollywood was losing, but in its defeat, it stumbled upon an uncomfortable truth. People weren't pirating because they wanted to steal. They were pirating because it was easier. The age-old business model was broken. Buying a CD, waiting in line for DVDs, regional restrictions. It all felt ancient in the era of instant access. The internet had changed consumer psychology forever. And so, out of desperation, came innovation. In 2003, a young company named Apple launched the iTunes Store. For the first time, you could buy songs individually, legally, instantly, and conveniently. Then came Netflix, transforming from a DVD by mail service into the world's first true streaming platform. Spotify followed, offering music that didn't need to be owned, just accessed. Each of these services was built on a quiet admission. Piracy had won the philosophical war. The entertainment industry realized that to defeat piracy, it had to become it. Faster, simpler, and better. Suddenly, streaming wasn't just innovation, it was adaptation for survival. And it worked. For a while. The world began paying for what it could have stolen. The Pirate Bay's traffic dipped. Torrents slowed down. People traded their downloads for monthly subscriptions. Piracy didn't vanish. It just went dormant. It was the first time since Napster that the tide had turned. The digital rebellion had forced the empire to evolve. But while the West was moving toward legal comfort, the rest of the world was just getting started. Because in places where streaming was expensive, slow, or restricted, piracy wasn't a rebellion, it was survival. While Hollywood fought legal battles in courtrooms, something else was happening across the world, quietly, culturally, and on a massive scale. In Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Eastern Europe, piracy wasn't a crime. It was normal life. Entire economies were built on copied CDs, bootleg DVDs, and public computer cafes stuffed with free software. Walk through a bazaar in Karachi, Manila, or Moscow in 2009, and you'd find rows of colorful discs, all for the price of a cup of chai. They weren't hidden in back alleys. They were proudly displayed under neon lights. For millions, piracy wasn't rebellion. It was access. Streaming services didn't exist there yet, and credit cards were rare. Buying original software or entertainment wasn't just expensive, it was impossible. This was the global digital divide. In the West, piracy was framed as theft. In developing countries, it was seen as justice, a way to experience the same culture, the same art, without the barriers of wealth or geography. Governments mostly looked the other way. And when Western companies cracked down, they faced a philosophical problem. How do you criminalize people for accessing something they were never offered legally in the first place? The underground spread like wildfire. Torrent cafes popped up in India. In China, entire platforms like Baidu Cloud and Junlei were built around gray area sharing. And in Pakistan, even universities ran on pirated Microsoft Windows. It wasn't malicious. It was necessity disguised as defiance. Ironically, the East became the world's biggest distributor of Western culture through piracy. Hollywood films, Western music, and global news all traveled faster through illegal copies than official releases ever could. Piracy, once an act of rebellion, had now become a bridge, connecting worlds the legal market had ignored. But as that bridge expanded, so did the players. The pirates were evolving again, this time blending into the modern internet. And soon, they would rise from the ashes, stronger, smarter, and streaming. The 2010s were supposed to be the end of piracy. We had Spotify, Netflix, Apple Music, Amazon Prime. The dream was real. Everything you wanted, one click away. For a brief golden moment, the world thought the pirates had finally retired their sails. But here's the thing about pirates. They always come back when the treasure is scattered. And that's exactly what happened. By the late 2010s, streaming began to fracture. One platform became 5. 5 became 10. Disney launched its own. Then HBO, then Paramount. Then every other studio. That thought, hey, we can make our own subscription too. Suddenly, people found themselves paying more for streaming than they ever did for cable. Each platform guarding its content like a jealous dragon. You want The Office? That's on Peacock. You want Friends? Sorry, that's on Max. Convenience, the one thing that killed piracy, was gone again. And right on cue, the pirates returned. But this time, they were smarter. No more sketchy torrent sites or pop-up ads with shady casino links. Now it was Telegram channels, IPTV services, and sleek websites that looked cleaner than Netflix itself. Entire online communities emerged. Movie streaming hubs that mimicked the real thing, except for one small difference. They were free. And let's be honest, when people are forced to choose between 10 subscriptions and one free click, the choice isn't that hard. Hollywood called it Piracy 2.0. The rest of the world called it common sense. Today, piracy isn't hiding anymore. It's blending in. AI subtitles, 4K uploads, private streaming servers. The pirates evolved into something untraceable, decentralized, and dangerously efficient. It's ironic. The same technology that companies use to protect their content, cloud computing, encryption, distributed servers, is now used to pirate it better. The internet's underground didn't disappear. It just went premium. And as the streaming wars raged on, one question grew louder. If everyone's trying to own content, who really owns culture? By now, piracy isn't just about free movies. It's a moral gray zone wrapped in Wi-Fi. For some, it's theft. For others, it's the last form of digital protest, a middle finger to the system that turned creativity into corporate currency. The debate is centuries old, but online it hits differently. Think about it. When someone downloads a $20 movie, are they stealing, or are they refusing to pay for a system that keeps slicing art into paywalls? When a student in Pakistan downloads Photoshop because they can't afford it, is that a crime nor a symptom of digital inequality? The truth is, piracy has become contextual morality. In some places, it's survival. In others, it's laziness. And in many, it's a quiet rebellion. Ironically, the entertainment giants who preach about piracy's damage have also profited from it. Netflix once admitted that piracy data helped them decide what shows to buy. Spotify's success came from proving that legal access could beat illegal downloads. So maybe piracy wasn't the villain. Maybe it was the mirror. But that doesn't mean it's clean. Piracy still costs jobs, kills indie films, and undermines artists who depend on genuine sales. It's a double-edged sword. One side rebellion, the other exploitation. At its core, piracy raises the biggest question of the digital era. What does ownership mean when everything is just data? A movie, a song, a photo, even this video. Once uploaded, it stops being yours. It becomes part of the cloud. Eternal, duplicable, uncontrollable. Maybe that's why piracy feels less like theft now and more like entropy. The internet doing what it does best, copying itself endlessly. The moral battlefield isn't about law anymore. It's about belief, whether information should be controlled or shared. And in that silent struggle between freedom and ownership, one side refuses to die. Because the pirates aren't gone. They've just found better Wi-Fi. By the 2010s, piracy had become so advanced that it started to feel less like chaos and more like an underground industry, a silent, organized ecosystem running beneath the surface of the visible web. And at the center of that shadow network were two words whispered in tech forums and IRC chat rooms: the scene. The scene wasn't a website, a group, or a brand. It was a collective, a global alliance of hackers, encoders, and digital smugglers who competed to release pirated content first, clean, flawless, and tagged with cryptic names like RARBG, Evo, or Yiffy. They weren't doing it for money, at least not most of them. It was about pride, reputation, and a twisted kind of art form. To them, uploading a perfect 1080p Blu-ray rip before anyone else wasn't theft. It was performance, but alongside them lurked darker figures, the leakers. These weren't coders in basements, they were insiders, editors, distributors, even film festival staff. They leaked Oscar screeners, unreleased albums, unfinished games. In 2014, the infamous Sony Pictures hack exposed entire movie catalogs before release, a digital apocalypse that terrified Hollywood. And then came the hacktivists. Groups like Anonymous and LulzSec blurred the line between justice and anarchy. They claimed to fight corruption, censorship, and corporate control, but often their wars left collateral damage in the form of leaked data, stolen content, and broken systems. Meanwhile, the darknet became the new frontier, a place where anything could be traded, from software to entire film databases, accessible only through layers of encryption. No ads, no trackers, no authorities, just endless mirrors reflecting a world without ownership. Governments fought back with cyber units and surveillance laws. But the pirates adapted: VPNs, proxies, onion networks. It was digital guerrilla warfare at scale. And in that endless loop of attack and counterattack, one thing became clear. Piracy was no longer just about entertainment. It had become part of the internet's DNA, a reflection of human defiance coded into the system itself. The hackers were the ghosts in the machine, and the machine was everywhere. Every war ends, except this one. 2 decades, billions of dollars, and countless court cases later. The fight against piracy has achieved what exactly? Websites die, new ones rise, servers fall, mirrors multiply. It's an infinite loop, the internet's version of whack-a-mole, except the moles have PhDs in computer science. The truth no one wants to admit is simple. Piracy never died. It adapted. It became quieter, faster, smarter. And somewhere along the way, it stopped being about stealing movies and started being about freedom of access in a world of digital walls. Even now in 2025, the story continues. Torrent sites still exist, some openly, some hidden, behind layers of encryption. Private Discords and Telegram channels act as underground theaters, streaming 4K films before premiere day. People share, trade, upload, and rebuild, all without profit, all without permission. And maybe that's the strangest truth of all. Piracy, for all its chaos, forced humanity to rethink how we share art, how we value creativity, and how we define ownership. Without it, we might never have had Spotify, Netflix, or the idea that access beats control. The FBI warnings faded. The anti-piracy ads became memes. But the spirit behind that rebellion, the belief that information wants to be free, still pulses through every bite of the internet. Maybe that's what makes piracy immortal. It's not about stealing, it's about refusing to be locked out. The pirates of the past may have worn hoodies instead of eye patches, but their mission was the same as it ever was: to challenge control in a world obsessed with ownership. And so, the ship sails on. No sails, no cannon, just signals and servers, moving through the endless digital sea. The authorities still chase it, the corporations still curse it, but the world secretly thanks it. Because deep down, every internet user has sailed on that ship at least once. The rebellion never ended. It just got better bandwidth. They tried to shut it down. They banned, sued, threatened, and censored. But the truth? You can't arrest an idea. Piracy didn't die. It evolved. It lives in encrypted servers, private groups, and quiet whispers across the web. Because maybe piracy was never about stealing. Maybe it was about refusing to be controlled. This isn't just a story about piracy. It's the story of the internet itself and the rebels who refused to log out. So now I'll leave you with one question. Was piracy ever truly wrong? Or was it a rebellion against control? And be honest. What was your first ever download as a pirate? Tell me in the comments. And let's see who among us still remembers the thrill of that first forbidden click.